in and out, but okay, let's have a little look here then, Jakub. Okay, so first thing that strikes me here is a beautiful recovery over the top of the water. Very, very nice indeed. Almost looks like you're doing finger trail. Okay, I have seen a guy in a session before, in a video session, actually trailing his fingers through the water.
Spend loads of time
doing a finger trail. Yeah, is it sort of, okay? Sure. The thing with that is, okay, obviously we don't want the hands actually breaking the water there, and sometimes in the open water that can actually occur. So you appreciate that if we zoom you in. One of the modifications, and you may already do this without even thinking about it, but as nice as that looks over the top of the water, we have only literally got about an inch or two clearance from the surface. So as crazy as some of those recoveries like we saw with Janet Evans earlier on, that's probably a very extreme position, but just trying to get the hand opened, elbow opened out a little bit, just give you a little bit more clearance, will certainly help quite nicely. But it does look very nice, it looks very, very smooth. Okay, now it's also a good placement into the water as well. So fingertips before the wrist, wrist before the elbow. Same sort of thing on the other side, looks nice and smooth. Now what we can see though here, see just in that region, the two hands actually look like they're doing a catch up. Okay, so looking at the numbers here, 51 strokes per minute, 137 per 100. Okay, so it's nice time, 137 per 100 is good. Now what we're going to see here is quite a straight arm pull through as well underneath the water. Is that something that you're aware of, or?
I was filmed and I was told just to bend the
Sure.
arm, so I'm aware and I'm working on it.
You're working on it, yeah. Okay, so obviously within the context of today's session, we'll try and tune that up a little bit. There's a tendency here, look, for that hand. I think in maybe a while ago, that hand maybe raised up a little bit closer towards the surface. It still drops the elbow down a little bit. Okay, and it certainly happens when you're going to take a breath into the side. That's better. That's better. When you go to take a breath in, the elbow just collapses a little bit in the water. This sort of straight arm pull through, you're obviously very lean. But despite all the work that you've done on trying to balance your body out in the water, the legs are still quite low, quite a low sinking leg position in the water. And to explain that, we really need to see from the front here. You see how this arm, look, take a breath into the side, the arm itself is way across in front of your head, and it's also then pulls through extremely straight and extremely deep, with the fingertips, with the fingertips completely open there. Now, this straight arm pull through would explain a significant portion of why the legs actually sit so low in the water. Okay, hand comes in, a little bit better there underneath the body. That hand's almost a little bit too far across underneath the body there. Ideally, what we're looking for here is, is this. Let me just show you this. Okay, and again, just to bring up Becky, underneath the water, you can see how the elbow is out to the side, but the hand never actually drifts across underneath her here. It's almost like the hand is pretty much directly underneath that same shoulder. With yourself, it's almost across towards the other shoulder there, and just not lined up too correctly. The hands, obviously we can see them drifting across a little bit, especially this right one when it comes into the water here. Drifts right the way across underneath the body. So what I'm seeing there within the stroke is it almost looks like a little bit like you're skating down the pool. Okay, so what I mean by that is the hand comes in, it drifts across underneath the body, it slips here, and the whole body then starts to follow it. So we end up sort of like drifting around a little bit within the lane. It's almost like this hand doesn't engage the water properly. Okay. In the open water, do you tend to swim fairly straight, do you think, or?
I think so, yeah.
You think so? Have you ever tested it? No. It would be something well worth you testing, just to see what it looks like. So beautiful over the top of the water, not quite so effective underneath the water, and this is where you really need to see it from. Okay, so we are using a wide angle lens here, so there is some distortion, but from this angle you're right in the center of the frame there, so there's distortion should be at a minimum, and yet the whole body is bent like a banana. Okay, hand is right the way across in front of the head there, and it looks you're straight, really. Yeah, it's not too bad here, look, but even then the hand sort of has this tendency to almost, it reaches in, it sort of drifts across, and it just looks like we're almost doing this down the pool as opposed to actually excelling and sending yourself forwards. So if we just bring up another little comparison here for you. Sorry. Sort of pausing it here. You can actually see that shoulder almost rolling over on itself. It's like almost like over here. If we bring up this video clip, this is John Van Hazel again. Just purely from this angle, what I want you to sort of visualize there is how that middle finger always extends straight forward in front of the shoulder, and he actually holds his body line in the water much straighter as a consequence. So it's straight down here as opposed to this arm leading across. Then the consequence is that the whole body then bends around in the middle there. Okay. If you actually drew it on the other side, it's almost like he's on a parallel line there, if that makes sense, with yourself crossing over quite a bit, almost skating down the pool. Do you ice skate at all? Does that analogy make sense? No, or ski or anything? Yeah. It's just a sort of like this over the body there. Okay. Now, consequently. As we can see underneath the water, the arms then sort of drift across, pull through quite straight. It gives you lift at the front end of the stroke. It's one of the reasons the legs sit a little bit on the low side. I mean, they're not incredibly low, but just trying to get them up a little bit higher there would help quite a bit. You've actually got a reasonable kicking action, so you're not overly bending from the knees there. Toes are relatively pointed. Good rotation within the stroke. We need to make sure we don't over rotate, and that can certainly happen when we drift across in front of the head there.
What sort of drills?
Good point, good question, and let me show you that right now. So one of the absolute best drills for you to actually correct this is a drill or a variant on a drill that you've probably done a million times before but for a different reason. What are your favourite drills to do? You said is it like finger trail or something like that? Okay. What else have you done? Done much kicking on the side?
I started doing is it
6-3-6 or something like this. Yeah, okay, that's a pretty good drill for you. But even before we get to that stage, this drill here where you simply kick on the side is very important indeed. Now whenever you are on the side here and you are almost over rotating there, around about 70 or 80 degrees, we want about 45 degrees worth of rotation. When that hand drifts across in front of the head there, okay, this particular drill is very useful indeed, and we're all going to do this today because it's one of the fundamental drills to actually get right within your swimming. So you see here how that hand is pointed straight down the pool. With people who tend to drift across in front of their head, when they try and do this drill, the hand drifts across in front of the head and the whole body ends up sort of drifting down the pool. So when the right arm's out, we drift to the left, sorry. When the left arm's out, we drift to the right there. To actually get this working better, this drill is normally used for improving somebody's rotation, or to think about kicking on the side, or using the side kicking exercise, etc. But what we're actually thinking about here, and really what I want you to think about, Jakub, when you're doing this exercise, is to think about what's actually happening in this region, basically in your upper back and shoulders. If you can actually think about drawing your shoulder blades together and back, and supporting yourself with a more stable base with this lead arm, then transfer that into the freestyle stroke, then it's going to stop you having that sensation of almost drifting across and skating down the pool, as it were. Okay. So there's really two things. We need a little bit more support at the front end of the stroke, and what I mean by that is, balance essentially. It's almost like in the past you've maybe over rotated a little bit, We need to make sure that's not happening. We need to make sure we're actually spearing forwards, and then towards the end of the session today, I'll actually show you how to then actually tune up that catch and pull through, so we're not quite so straight underneath the water. But it's a pretty nice stroke. It just needs a bit of tuning up here. It certainly looks very nice from the surface. It's interesting how somebody like Janet Evans can look horrible from the surface, but is amazingly effective underneath the water. And that's what we don't see. Sometimes we just look at purely what's happening over the top of the water without sort of appreciating what's happening underneath the water there.